This is Baruch Fleischman here. I'm back again. I want you to show you it's actually the reproduction I made is not the world's greatest. This is the Tikkun elevator, Kol T-E-K. Our job is to stand in the darkness of the world, the night of this world, and bring us into so. Our motto is that you should learn Zohar every day. That's really what we want to say. Okay, maybe we'll try to work on this and get it the right size and different things, and try to get the artwork a little bit better. But we are the old Tikkun elevator column. And what we've been learning about here is that this is the shir on the Kriat Shemah and the Shara Kavanos. Now, if somebody asks me why I keep doing this, why am I doing more Zohar? Well, we learn Zohar actually every day, but the Zohar that we're learning is a piece called the Sifra Ditzniusa. And so in between that, because this is the month of Elul, we're also learning the Tikkun Zohar. Now, there's a Zohar in the Parsha of the week as well. It's more developed during the year rather than in Elul this time. So we go to the Tikkun Zohar. That's where we're at right now. We want to get an idea of the flow of that river of Sod. So here we've been talking about, let's read the top, and it says, V'nachzok of the Boyeratam. Now we're going to come back and explain the reason. Lama chutzcho shnei mini Kriat Shema. Why you need two different kinds of Kriat Shema? L'tzarech zilvuk echad to defeat the shachris. Ma she'en came b'shar hazivukim. Now, what did he mean? He meant there's a Kriat Shema that you say at Karbanos, and there's a Kriat Shema that you say at the time what the Rav calls Yotzer. Let's go. So he said, because the mochen that came in at midnight, they came to the lowest possible place. And his words are that they were extended out, or they streamed down from the Hitzonius of Abba Ve'ima. And then after that, the mochin completely and totally leave Kanoida. This is an important idea. As we were saying in the last years, is that the concept of yichud is the concept of life itself. It's also the concept of kedusha that can come into the life. Let's look a little bit over here in the Tivuk Avon is right. This is going to start with number Kaf Zion. It's right here. It says, look. Why do we have to say the Kriat Shema twice? There's only going to be one zivug, the Yaakov, the Rachel, the Shachris. So you're going to have a big time yichud that's going to take place every day. Now understand what we are learning in the Shir on Rosh Hashanah, that there is a whole process in here which is called the Mesirat that is necessary, but we're not looking at that part. Masha Ein came b'shum zaman acher. There's no other time that you have for one yichud to take place. That is the big yichud that's between Yaakov and Rachel. He says there's no other time between any other yichudim, whether we're talking about the Yaakov with Leah or above or below the chazir, etc. He says, Masha Ein came b'shum zaman acher. Hare Tamed Azivuk the Kriat Shema who Litzorach Hamshachas Amochen Zav and look, because the whole idea of the Zivuk to make the Kriat Shema is to bring new mochim into the Zoch of Anok. B'lama tzricha b'shvil Zivuk echad. So why is it that for the sake of one yichud, the Zav Anok, and the Azabah Hamida, the Shachrish, was really the actual yichud, the ultimate yichud takes place at Sem Shalom during Shachris, the cross Kriat Shema Pamayim. So why do we have to do this twice in order to get to that place? So he says like this. Let's look down here and let's see what he says. Every time there's a yichud in Kriat Shema, mochin are streamed down into Zam. And it continues until the time that tefillah, in other words, the streaming of the mochin is coming into their anpin while you are doing this. And it continues until you reach the end of the tefillah. So there at Sim Shalom, and Sim Shalom is really our last bracha. So he said there, he said, that's when the zivuk takes place between Zachar and Noch, but the stimulus, which is the mochin that came into Zer Anpin, they leave it this time. Now that happens nowadays, at the time of this galus, and there are two reasons for it. One, because we're concerned about the Kitzanim. So therefore, that's the reason we don't want to keep going after the tefillah. We're going to see what the Rav says later on. He says, before you got to the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, his pala was almost as if we didn't have to really pray, to ask. We didn't have to. Because the Zochar Benuk, they were always facing each other and in Yichud, which means that because the mochin inside of Zadah were perpetually inside of him. And never left. So then at that point, you don't really need special deeds for people down below and their prayers. In order to bring mochin to Zer Anpin and Nizuk, in order to be able to make them go panim bepanim, because the stream never stopped. He said, but after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, because of the tremendous sins, then the mochin left Zer Anpin and Nizuk. By Yedei Tefilosenu, Ana Gomrim, the Hachzer, Sagormim, the Hachzer, the Hamshech, Mochin, Bezah, Benuk. So he says, right, what happened now after the Horban is that they have to be brought in anew all the time. By Yedei Tefilosenu, and through our prayers, Ana Gormim, we cause the Hachzer, the Hamshech, Mochin, Bezah, Benuk. This causes the Mochin to come back again, he says. So they can have a yichud at the time of prayer. And as a result of that, they will pour shefa out into the world. And then after the tefillah, the mochin come back and they leave again. Ad zman tefillah cheres, until you come to the next tefillah. So here we're on the road to answering the question, why do we need two Shemahs before we get to the Yichud that takes place in Sam Shalom? Why not just one? Okay, so he says like this. Zaman Acheres, V'kol Darcham Tamid, V'kol Darcham Tamid. So this is always what it's like. It's just like a cycle. When you're praying, you're bringing it in. When you're not praying, you're not doing that. Every single tefillah in the day is a week. It's like this. Gam says so. So this is also the secret of what we learned in the Gemara. There were a certain number of Talmidei Chachomim who used to take a special time to say a tefillah. They call it the tefillah's nedava, not Shachris Mencha Marav, not like that. But another one. Why? So they called it a gift, tefillah. The idea is to try to bring the mochin back another time. But it roams zivuk elyon b'shar yom, so that cause that will be other times in the day, other than those 3 times in the day, that it would be possible to cause this yichud to take place in Shemayim, etc., etc. Now let's go, I think, here's where we're at, number Kov Tes. At the time when we're saying Shachris, because this is the highest level. Why do we say that? Because the dressing for the light, the Ein Sof, that comes to us, is coming from Atik Yomim, which is the most penimistic parts of that we can understand or possibly direct our attention to. Shehi Zivug Yaakov Arachel, and this will be the Yichul of Yaakov Arachel. Baparatki Haim Moshkim Min Kitzonius to Atik, and specifically, as I said, that they come from the Kitzonius of Atik. That is the inspiration for that Yichud. I'm trying to get these words out, trying to understand. I don't see him using this concept, which he did mention, the Tiv mentioned, the concept of Yislapshus. I don't see him using that language. He's not using it anymore. His words are, Ubaprat ki hem moshchim. And he said at the very beginning of the drush, and I'm trying to go through this in myself, trying to understand how it goes this way, that way, and what is actually the meaning of coming from the Kitzonius of Atik. That's what I'm trying to understand. So I say that what he had said is that he picks up a lavush from that place. Everywhere else is just a pass-through. And that's his point, where you pick up the lavush, everywhere before that or everywhere after it is going to be a pass-through. Now, what the meaning of this seems a little bit high to me. Specifically because they come from that place. Now, this was number Kaf Tes. Kaf Tes continues on to the other page, and it looks to me, there's one more that we have. No. Kaf Tes. Let me just make sure. Kaf Tes. Okay, let's start Kaf Tes. So he says, so he says, now explains just the idea that we just had. In the night of Kriya Shema, Sha'al Hamita, that's the last time we say Kriya Shema, Nimshak HaMochen Lezer Anpen Mechitzonius Abba Ve'ima Atzman. It comes from the outside of Abba Ve'ima. Abba Ve'ima is like the last stop before the destination. In other words, there were pass-throughs from all of the higher places, and the place that actually took the light of the Ein Sof in its smallest form was from Abba Ve'ima. It's the weakest place, which is along the line of the streaming of the Mochim. And then after that, Beboker, in the morning time, Mistalkin called the Mochin the Gamre. Then, when the morning comes, they completely and totally leave. He said, so there comes out that there's two things missing. One is that these are the most inferior of the mochim. These are the least of the mochim, of all of the mochim that are in the Olam Atzilus. But also another thing is that they completely leave Zeran Pen and its note when the morning comes. The ain't shum mochin is us, and the zochin is empty. It doesn't even have so low class mochin. Therefore, this is the reason that if you want to bring the most important mochim into the zah, in other words, the translation again, those mochim which are clothed in the highest level of light, which is the mochim that will come from the outside of Atik. So this would be the highest possible level sheyesh lano kachayom that we have today. So lazavog Yaakov Rachel b'tefillah shachris, in order to make a yichud between Yaakov and Rachel b'tefillah shachris. Shulha zivug hayoser chashuv sheyesh b'chol kadaida, which is the zivug, which is the most important zivug that you have during the weekday. So therefore, it's really not possible for Kriya Shema, one Kriya Shema, lahashliman mibechinat chayosa gerua. So in other words, they were in the level which was the lowest level of light coming into Zeranpin, because that's what happens in the midnight, from the midnight time. So therefore, you need two Shemas. The Yosef, so he says chashuv. So that's the reason why you have to say Kriya Shema two times. So that little by what you're doing is you're causing Zer Anpin to grow little by little. Now, why you need him to grow little by little? So he says that Zer Anpin should be able to grow slowly. That's what he means by lot. First you said the Kriya Shema de Karbanos. V'achakach Kohen Kriya Shema de Yotzer. Then after that you read the Kohen Kriya Shema de Yotzer, Shihak Ikris, which is really the most important part. Now let me see if I can find where this number Lamed is. This one right here, number Lamed. Let's just read number Lamed. Up at the top here, Tiva Gabanos. This is actually, so excuse me, the words of the Rav. Kriya Shema al shal Seder Gabanos. So the Kriya Shema that we do in the Seder Gabanos, what happens there? Ana mamshichim in Panemius Eric Anpin. This is a very high level too. You're bringing from the Panemius of Eric Anpin. It's the notch right below the Hitzonius of Atek. Remember the rule that the Hitzonius of the upper becomes the Panemius of the lower. So that it's inside. In other words, it becomes the Panemius of the lower. But it's still the low, it's still one notch below Atek Yomim. So Rabin Panemius Eric Anpin. V'achakach b'Kriya Shema de Yotzer. Then after that, when we do the Kriya Shema de Yotzer, Ana mamshicha mechitzonius Atek, and now we move up one more higher. Shehu makom yoseh gevora ve'elyon, which is a place which is much higher, very far up. Let's see this little bit right here. So he said, V'sidran hu kach. This is their order. Shebe'amiris Kriya Shema de Karbanos. When you say the Kriya Shema de Karbanos, Ana mamshicha nemoch dezer anpen min pnimios rich, from the inside of rich, from the pnimi of rich. V'achakach be'amiris Kriya Shema de Yotzer. Then now you're pulling down from a very high place, which is the pnimius of rich, which is the reason why is it, in fact, that it's so high? Because it has within it, directly within it, the Hitzonius of Atek. And then he said, when you come to Kriya Shema, the Yotzer, Ana mamshich and the mochin dezechem bechitzonius Atek, then we bring it from the Hitzonius Atek itself. So he says there's a difference here between the Panemius of Eric Anpin, who has Atek within him, and the Kitzonius of Atik itself, because the Kitzonius of Atik is connected to the Panemius of Atik, etc., which we can't talk about. They don't talk about it. Well, they do talk about it in Shar Atik, and it's mind-blowing. V'hu madrega yoseh gavoer min Panemius Atik, Ariach, rather. It's one level higher than Panemius of Ariach. Okay, this is Baruch. This has been the Shir on the Kriya Shema here at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo 15-day Elul.